My name is Peter Dunn, and I will be analyzing the film Moneyball for what it could tell us about group dynamics. Moneyball is a critically acclaimed 2011 sports biopic that follows the Major League Baseball team, the Oakland Athletics, during their difficult 2002 season. The team was in dire straits during this time through a combination of severe budget constraints, talent drain to wealthier teams, and a mounting pressure to win games and generate income. The responsibility for fixing these problems fell to general manager Billy Beane, who recognized that the solution would not be found using traditional methods. He recruits Peter Brand, a Yale economics graduate who uses data based metrics to evaluate players and form a winning team. The film's cultural relevance, along with the actual content of the film, make it an excellent artifact to analyze leadership and group roles in a small group setting. Leadership is the film's most apparent theme, emphasized with a focus on Billy Beane's daily life and his interactions with his team. Leadership is defined in leading small groups theoretical perspectives on page 177 as, quote, a process involving communication efforts to influence others towards group goals, end quote. Leadership can be thought of through two broad approaches, contemporary or traditional. Contemporary approaches to leadership examine a whole group dynamic, while traditional focuses solely on the leader's traits or style. Billy Beane's leadership is best seen through the traditional style approach, as he specifically exemplifies a leadership style called autocratic. According to the textbook on page 178, autocratic leaders, quote, tightly control their groups, making assignments, directing all verbal interaction, and giving orders, end quote. This style is evidenced in the scene when Peter Brand is brought into a meeting with the team's scouts. Billy enters that meeting knowing the outcome, regardless of what anyone else says, and explicitly states how decisions will be made moving forward, as, quote, this is the new direction of the A's, end quote. Autocratic leadership can be contentious, but it does have its place and usefulness. Specifically, the textbook notes that it can be effective in time-sensitive situations where members are unwilling or unable to adapt on their own. At the end of the day, Billy's leadership did facilitate organizational change, but there was a cost of conflict with the team. The film also gives clear examples of some of the roles people adopt when part of a group. These roles are how people attempt to influence others within a group according to their own personal goals and motivations. This innate human behavior was discovered and popularized by academics Kenneth Benet and Paul Sheets. They split the 26 roles they identified into two broad categories, functional or dysfunctional. Functional roles mainly seek to influence the group positively, whereas dysfunctional roles want to harm the overall effectiveness of the group for their own personal reasons. Enhanced by Billy Beane's autocratic leadership style, many of the members of his team adopt a dysfunctional role when interacting as part of a group. The most notable of these is lead scout Grady Fuson. He adopts a role of blocker, which YouTube video functional and dysfunctional group roles defines at the 528 mark as someone who, quote, opposes ideas extensively, often causing a group to stall. In a planning committee, they might constantly shoot down every proposal without suggesting alternatives, end quote. There is an important distinction between the blocking role and simply blocking in general. Blocking in general can be done positively. For example, a baseless idea might be prevented from making it to the group in the first place. Fuson doesn't none of this and simply rejects Bean and Brand's strategy outright. To combat this, Bean is forced to rely even more heavily on autocratic control, which shows that strong leadership is necessary to overcome dysfunctional groups. The main contrast to the team's dysfunctional role players is Peter Brand. He demonstrates a functional role that is essential to achieving the group's overall goal of winning. Brand performs this role of information giver, which is defined in the functions and dysfunctional group videos at the 142 mark as, quote, someone who provides the required clarification, information, or opinion. In a research team, the giver might share findings from a recent study that informed the group's next step, end quote. Brand perfectly embodies this role by supplying the statistical analysis and objective data that serves as the main tool of success. When the scouts dismiss Scott Hatteberg because he can't throw, Brand counters with specific statistics showing that Hatteberg consistently gets on base. Getting on base determines runs, which ultimately is statistically what wins games. Without Brand in this functional role, the group would lack any path through its numerous issues. As with the dysfunctional roles, This shows an important dynamic between a group and its leadership. Whereas dysfunctional actions can be overcome, without some positive contributors, the group has no chance of success, no matter how strong the leadership is. Through examining Billy Bean's autocratic leadership, Grady Fuson's blocking behavior, and Peter Brand's information giving role, we can see how leadership style and group roles interact in a much more complicated fashion than they first appear to. Bean's autocratic approach, while unpleasant and confrontational, is ultimately necessary when group members actively resist working in conditions outside of their comfort zone. Fuson's blocking behavior illustrates how dysfunctional roles can materialize in the first place, and can even be understandable to a certain degree. Finally, Brand's functional role shows that positive contributions are undisputedly what determines if a group can achieve its goal. By learning to identify the group roles through examples in Moneyball, we can more clearly understand why our own groups succeed or fail. Thank you very much.